Welcome back, everyone. I am the Depressed Viewer, and this is Langrisser Mobile Apex Season 6. I'm not sure if I said the correct season when I ended the last video. Oh well. Anyway, so something to note about this guy, Amanok. I actually fought him before and lost. And that was the battle I think I mentioned in a previous video where I misused Arian Rod. But a neat thing about this particular opponent is they use Betty. And obviously, Betty's main gimmick is essentially to take reduced AoE damage and reflect a bunch of fixed damage based off the number of allies that are hit nearby. So she's kind of supposed to be designed as a counter against AoE nonsense. Unfortunately, Betty just isn't that much of a threat overall, even with her exclusive weapon or item. She tends to just not perform super well. But you'll be able to get her more likely be seeing her in action one way or the other, because this person particularly likes to pick Betty. In any case, I went and banned Juggler. There's Albedo, Betty for tanks. Betty is only physical tank. Then we of course got a lot of like mixed assassination types. We got Renata, Zerda, I believe that's Joshua. And then a whole lot of other nonsense. Of course, there's old Lanius, a lot of AoE. It's a little bit of mix. I'm still using Mystery Knight in this one, so yep, let's keep going. So they banned my Rosalia. Already going for my legs right off the bat. They pick Albedo. I go ahead and take care of Rian and their primary assassin and take my Albedo. They start going for my ranged magic and got rid of my Sakura, and they already are taking Lycoris. My opponent also likes using the terrain stuff from Lycoris as well. So I got rid of their other nasty assassins in AoE. I went ahead and grabbed Sophia at this point. I didn't really need to grab her immediately, but I wanted to ensure that I have the buffs. Did lose out on some assassins, but that's okay. You see they pick Betty already. Betty is also a dark faction. I think she's Empire and Dark, so she actually goes well with Lycoris's buff. I went ahead and banned the rest of their melee magic damage dealers that can passively heal. Went ahead and grabbed Zerda because they let me. They went ahead and banned the rest of my healers, I'm not sure why. They took Liana as their healer. So I was like, alright, well, I'll get rid of Anata and Bozel. So that leaves them with either a healer or Old Landius. Old Landius is a huge pain, but I'd rather deal with him than Bozel. Nowadays, I've changed my opinion, and I'd rather deal with Bozel than Old Landius any day. Because Old Landius is just so annoying. I mean, Bozel's also an issue, because every time he casts Dark Hole, his clock procs. So it's just how my luck works, I guess. In any case, I'm not sure why they banned my... Oh, I think they banned my spears for... I'm not sure why they banned my spears. There's no reason to. Literally, it won't do anything. Also, something to note about his Albedo is she's actually demon type. So she actually has really high stats, but she's actually vulnerable to Holy. Alright. So they go ahead and take Old Landius, and I'm going to take Mystery Knight. I know Old Landius kind of counters Mystery Knight, but I was kind of okay with it. Alright, so you get to see the sprite for Albedo's Dark Knight class. Standard Albedo with Blackguard Aegis. Standard Old Landius. Self-resing and a bunch of AoE. Liana is going no single targets, went with Summon instead. The chorus is pure offense. And Betty is pretty much just defense and savage attack, which can potentially stun, but you have to be in defensive terrain, so it sucks. Standard Mystery Knight, standard Albedo, standard support Deedlit, standard Sophia, and standard Zerda. Let's continue. So having just did this map recently, I went ahead and start pushing for the center. And Landius is already going to open with Light Array. So Light Array has a 2-turn cooldown, by the way, so it's actually something he can just spam. It's ridiculous. He just gets that. He gets all that terrain all over the place. It's super annoying. This might be the first video where I've actually shown this dazzling light stuff. In any case, what it does for allied infantry and aquatic is they can move 2 blocks after attacking, and for the opponents, if they're flyers, cavalry, or they ignore terrain, each of these squares costs an additional 1 movement. It's really painful. It's supposed to counterattack the long legs meta that was a thing for a while, and it kind of does. I mean, it definitely does for me because I don't have as extreme range as someone like Ares or Claret. So a big thing here I was worried about is, of course, getting hit with AoEs. So I went ahead and just pushed in. Wind Wall proc, Magic Refraction. Olanius doesn't actually have a lot of HP, but he does self-res, which is really annoying. So I was like, alright, I'm gonna go ahead and push in. This transformation makes me immune to all debuffs, so I was kind of okay with setting up here. So the shift down there was just to ensure that Zerda can't reach Liana. I went ahead and moved in. Got hit here. I completely forgot about Betty's passive ability, so it did proc there. So it hit and it did freaking can't use passive skills and can't heal yourself. So it actually prevented Knight of Mystery from backtracking. So my plan was just to move up AoE and then move back, but I couldn't do that because Betty was applied 2 random debuffs that completely stopped me. So I went ahead and just moved in, did Sea of Miracles, just to kind of try to get that to proc. And then I was going to proc this, so use this as an opportunity to go ahead and move in, do some damage to Albedo. Now this actually hurt me more than I expected. Not the attack, but the passive effect. So whenever you use Elven Aura, it makes it so you have an aura that treats everything as forest, and makes it so everyone is unaffected by terrain. So what that did was it actually made it so Albedo can't move this terrain. Usually Albedo can move fine through this because she's not cavalry, but since she's in Deedlit's aura, and Deedlit has her own aura, they actually can't move through the dazzling light. So this actually hindered me quite a bit. So guard buff. The guard buff honestly doesn't do much because, well, it does a little bit, but the only physical attacker I have is essentially Albedo and Zerda, and I'm not really attacking with Albedo, and Zerda is an assassin, and everyone else is magic, so Betty's little guard is not really going to do much. So here's Wave Whisper. It's going to put out more terrain. Thankfully, it did not proc clock, so it has a 5-turn cooldown, thankfully. I went ahead and took advantage of this opportunity to go ahead and get a kill off on Albedo to get rid of the self-res. And that worked out pretty well for me. And that's when I realized I actually can't move. This is when I was in this pile of freaking dazzling light, I was like, oh, I can't move with Albedo right now. I did have my act again, thankfully, so because it got cleansed off thanks to Deedlit. So I went ahead and moved back a step just so I can be in guard range. Alright, thanks to the rewind I was able to reapply my buffs. And I was able to reapply Gospel. So I've taken the center at this point, so my opponent has to be aggressive at this point, or else he's just going to get gradually pushed by the mist. Alright, and so I went to try to assassinate Betty. It works. So we'll go ahead and take a quick look at the stats. So yeah, Betty, so how to explain this? So her fixed damage passive is all based off her attack. And her parry only works when she's being attacked. so that's the only time she'll actually increase in defense. She has no special terrain here, so she might get some benefits depending on what training she has on the crystal molders. But essentially the only buff she's going to get was the 7% of attack to defense. And I'll be attacking Betty directly, and as you can see, it's only 597 defense, and my attack is 1428. I also have Hellfire Archers, and she's not immune to fixed damage. So with that, all that combined, I can easily do 13,000 damage. I did double that, in fact. So that takes care of Betty. So now I can AoE at my leisure. And then here comes the AoE. Got a passive silence on me. Alright. And moved out just so I can get myself situated here. I was just outside of the range, so that's good there. Olandius is kind of not able to do anything at this point. I think he could have possibly done his. I think his light array still had one more turn. Even if it did, I think he probably wanted to keep the Breath of Darkness up just to keep me hindered by the extra damage and debuffs. So I went ahead and took this opportunity to go ahead and just attack. And at this point, my opponent gave up. They didn't really have any way of getting kills at this point. I mean, they could be annoying with the AoEs and stuff, but I was out damaging their heals at this point, and yeah, it was just gonna be a matter of time. All right, this might have been my last match for Saturday, and this is after losing 3 times. I was getting pretty tilted for a number of reasons. Obviously, the big thing was I would make a stupid mistake that would throw me the match. But the other thing that also happened a lot was just a lot of procs. Like a lot of those 30% procs from like Clock, Breeze, Thorns, the random buffs you get from Tenues. It was just everything seemed to be just not in my favor. I mean, I've seen with these recordings that I've gotten a lot of Breeze procs with like Young Jessica and things like that. But man, my opponent, it's just like, I get hit with Dark Hole, Clock would proc, they would AoE me again and again and again until I just can't do anything about it. And that's my biggest complaint about the PvP here, is there's so much RNG. I'm completely aware that Albedo is also all RNG, like all of her tankiness is pretty much revolving around 50% and 30% procs. But I mean, having like tanks well, it's bad either way. Like honestly, it's just I kind of wish they would drop a lot of the RNG aspects of this game. But it is what it is. Anyway, as for my opponent, I'm trying to remember exactly what this one. I'm pretty sure this was an all-in fight. So obviously I banned their juggler. Looking at the box, they have 3 tanks counting juggler. Only 2 healers. No, 3 healers. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 3 healers. No delit. And then it looks like just a whole lot of AoE. Just a lot of AoE. So yeah. They banned my Sakura. And they pick Rian. And I was like, okay. I think I know what my opponent wants to do. But I was like, you know what? I'll give him a chance. I'll ban both his Time Factioners and see what he does with that. So got rid of Yusuke and Joshua. Both of them have Time Faction buffs, so that'll at least keep Rian from being buffed. I did look up Rian's factions, and that was the only source of buffing that he can get besides Gospel. So I was like, all right, well, I'll grab Albedo. They banned some of my healers. I was like, okay, that's fine. They take Liana. I was like, okay, I'll just ban your tanks now. I was like, you wanna do a rush down? Let's do this. I'd still take a healer and all that. My rush down is, I never really fully commit to a rush down. They take Arian Rod. They did ban my assassins. Nothing too big there. What did I ban? Yeah, I banned most of their AoE at that point. Take Rosalia so I have some legs. Because they have no tank, so I can easily go and just kill whatever I want. They take Bozal. I ban more of their magic and AoE, leaving them with, looks like the Rosen Seal is only level 69. So they can either take another healer or they'll take Elwen. More likely they'll take Elwen. So I was like, alright, well, they don't really have any super high mobility besides Arian Rod. And Arian Rod's mobility kind of revolves around her being low on HP or getting into stacking her buff. So I kind of have the advantage here. So they banned some of my ranged and assassins, which I was completely fine with. They take Elwen. Excuse me. So, and I take Sheltier, because Sheltier also has good mobility when she's at full health. When she's at full health, anyway. Alright. So right off the bat, I'm going to go ahead and get my my turret modes activated. Bozal is all AoEs. Went Decay instead of Black Hole, I'm not sure why. Or Dark Hole. But as far as the range is concerned, as long as I'm outside his AoE range, I'm completely safe. And standard Rian, I think. I don't really know much about it besides his annoyance. Standard Arian Rod with AoEs. Elwen is got a faction buff, and that's about it. And then Leon is all standard heal support. Nothing, and I don't think there's anything I need to point out here. In hindsight, I could have swapped for block, but I probably forgot. So I was kind of thinking about possible chances of Elwen, you know, getting a Breeze proc or a Tenuous proc, and I was kind of counting the steps for that as well. But I was less worried about Elwen and more worried about the AoEs, to be honest. So just moving up, getting in position. Pretty much just getting as close as I could safely get. Now something to note here. Using Mass Heal to get everyone their passive buff from Sophia. I'm actually within attack range of this Bozal here, because Sheltier has 2 range with Purify and Javelin. I wasn't sure if Leona was going to try to do an act again on Bozal at least, but that didn't seem to happen. My opponent does go first, so let's see what they do with that. Okay, so they actually moved away, so that actually, you know, temporarily saved them. Now, one thing else to note is I can actually get to Elwen from here if I want to. But I went ahead and just passed turn. Yeah, I went ahead and passed turn with Albedo first. And then with this, I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So yeah, I passed turn with my tank just to see what they would do first. And they moved in with Elwen and probably underestimated my range. Fireball against infantry is a lot of dead infantry. So that's just single target taken care of. And then I was like, alright, well, you're going to go ahead and move in, I see. That's fine, I'll go ahead and just do this now. So even with the 30% damage reduction, I was pretty confident I was going to be able to get the kill here. I did have, you know, cavalry troops versus infantry. And he can't counterattack. So yeah, more than enough. And I was like, alright, well, I'll fall back. Get hit with Sturm Lance, I was like, okay. Spirit Lance against weak soldiers, because usually you go weak soldiers for with Arian Rod just to ensure that she gets low HP. But yeah, she could, like, usually what you would try to do is maybe get into melee with her, attack so you can get her HP low, get the act again, trigger all of the fancy carbon fiber procs, and then do your AoE. But yeah, going in with just Stern Lance, that was just throwing a body away. I was curious, I was wondering if Sheltier was going to be able to do enough damage. I always a bit wary about characters that are spears that are designed for DPS. But with Amazon champions and the debuffs that you can proc, so far Sheltier actually does pretty good damage. Alright, yeah, that was pretty quick. Yeah, I forgot to mention on the previous match, I actually had a 3-loss streak. So yeah, I'm having that issue of getting just short of getting the rank up. Anyway, let's go ahead and do one more since the last one was a bit short. So they actually opened by banning my Albedo, so I was like, all right, well that makes my choices easier. And I was kind of looking here with my opponent. Obviously the Ares is a thing. They have a juggler, so I'm going to ban their juggler as always. Everything else, it looks like a kind of a princess faction mix here. And they actually have a Amelia as one of their tanks. So you'll get this pop. You'll more likely be seeing that in action, unless they go no tank. They actually banned my 2 primary healers here, so I was like, okay. So that was a bit of a problem. They take Amelia. I went ahead and banned their assassins and the Ares. I went ahead and took young Jessica because I can heal with her. I went ahead and banned my other healer. Not sure why they went for Arian Rod. Probably just didn't want to deal with the AoE. Actually, Arian Rod does pretty well against Holy, so that's another reason. They take Rose and CL. Rose and CL is actually not that. So the big issue with Rose and CL is her heals are actually much weaker. The crystal heals are actually a standard heal does about 5 times your int. A crystal heal only does about 3 times your int, and that's both single target and AoE. They both do only 3 times. So they're about all of her heals are essentially the equivalent of an AoE, a standard area heal. So she's actually not that great for just consistent healing that way, like, or at least burst healing. Obviously, her main gimmick is the fact she can get a lot of passive healing and a lot of negation of debuffs. But since I don't really go heavy on debuffs, Rose and Seal is actually not that big of a threat. The only issue about Rose and Seal is when she transforms, she does get a self-res, which makes her a little bit more difficult to deal with. So they let me have Zerida, so I'm going to take Zerida. They start taking out my legs, which is fine. They take Elwyn. I was completely okay with that. I went ahead and banned their Claret and their D-Lit. I did take Angelina. Oh, I did. That is a change. So I dropped Mystery Knight and I took Angelina. Obviously, from Season 5, I mentioned I heavily relied on Angelina. Like, I pretty much had 2 plays in Season 5. It was either do assassinations with Sherlinka and maybe Zerida if someone lets me have her. And then the play I usually was stuck with was rush with Angelina, do AoE, get extra action, hope I get a kill, and hope I win the trades. Now that I've been messing with other characters and setting up different setups, I'm less reliant on that, and I'm okay with bringing her back in. It gives me long reach and makes my opponents a little bit more wary. It also technically gives me another assassin type. I did change one other thing about her, but we'll get into that in a bit. So no more Mystery Knight, we have Angelina back, and I think that was kind of the best option for me. We got Luna here. It's actually an Archer Luna, which is not something I see very often. Went ahead and banned the rest of their casters, so they're going to have double healers. I actually went ahead and went with Sakura here. Shell Tier probably would have been maybe a better call in hindsight. But I was kind of concerned. I'm a little paranoid about fighting Amelia's, all these other people's Amelia's. I know mine can't do much. Because Amelia's can counterattack at range, and they also get first strike if they are at max HP and have higher defense. So I was a little concerned about that. Also, I just wanted to kind of put some pressure on them with some AoEs. I know I was not going to be able to get any debuffs off because Rose and CL is going to be a thing, and also Liana. But my plan was to AoE with Sakura just to get stacks of her talent. Because I don't have any way of buffing her. So the only way I can buff her is just stacking her own buffs. So yeah, standard Sakura with AoEs. I have her 3-cost skill, so every time she can get essentially 2 stacks per use if I hit up to 2 opponents. So yeah, like I said, my plan was just kind of put some pressure with that. She is using the katana, which applies even more debuff, so it is possible to kind of overwhelm Rose and Seal's stacks with that. And so I was hoping they could maybe keep a little bit of pressure that way. So young Jessica kept Fireball, and I took Mass Heal. She's our only healer, so I kind of have to. Angelina, main thing I swapped out is I swapped out her passive extra action thing and replaced it with Ram just to get a little bit extra damage. This match, I messed up bad on this match. I remember this. It's all coming back to me. Freya, standard, standard Zerida. Our opponents, we got a standard Elwyn, but actually, he's got defense break. That's a thing, apparently. Amelia's, well, I was about to say standard, but she's actually pure defense with consecration, of all things. So it's kind of like almost like a pseudo juggler. Luna here is standard kit. Wind God Realm, move again, faction buff. Rosenseal went faction buff, transfer 3-cost skill, and single target heals. And then Liana is no single target with a summon. So my opponent's going to be pushing in. My biggest fear, of course, is going to be this this Luna here. This Luna has... I was not expecting to fight a Archer Luna. I usually expect Flyers, but this one's Archer. Has Bolt Rangers, which could be a little dangerous, because if it procs, it does reduce damage taken. So, yeah. Big thing was I needed to kill that Elwyn. That was the main thing. I had to kill that Elwyn. If I didn't, it was game over. So yeah, pretty much just setting up right now. Bunch of faction buffs. I went ahead and took this opportunity. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and do it. I'll rush in, push these guys aside. I actually procced stun on Amelia, and I was going straight for Elwyn. I wanted to get the kill on Elwyn, and I was just short. Even with Ram, I was just short. So Crystal Restoration will heal a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and buff up here. And he went with Frontal Assault. And I won the exchange. So yeah, I was so annoyed because I was like, I didn't get the kill again. It's a flashback of season 5. Let's see. When on terrain with defensive effects, all damage taken is reduced by 20%. So standing in this defensive terrain actually reduced damage by 20%. Didn't go Sword Soul. Yeah, didn't go Sword Soul, so I still had all my defensives. Before entering battle, adds 20 attack to defense and disables all enemy passives. Okay, whatever. I didn't have any passives active. Yeah, so I think if he had done Sword Soul, he might have had a chance. But he didn't, so I got the kill. So yeah, that was... You know what? I want to see that again. Yeah, it looks like my attackers attacked first, or my attack hit first. So at this point, there was no way I was going to get Angelina out. Luna still hadn't procced her Wind God Realm, so anywhere I could have moved with Angelina, Luna would have been in range. In hindsight, let me look back. Yeah, could have went... Yeah, there's no way. She'll get in range and still have movement to spare to move away. So yeah, it was... So I just went and just attacked and forced her to back away with Wind God Realm. So the Wind God Realm will be kind of less useful here. So yeah, archers against flyers, it's no contest. But since they were busy dealing with Angelina, I can take the center. Here's that prayer, getting everyone healed up. Went ahead and took this opportunity to go ahead and get my get set up with Zerida. Alright, flying her faction buff. She She didn't really need her faction buff, but I'm guessing it's just... I mean, her faction buff is actually really neat. It allows any attackers that attack someone with that faction buff, they lose a random buff, which is pretty cool. I went ahead and moved in and did Haka Ryoran, which I also procced my katana. So I removed all the stacks, and I did manage to get the heal reversal on Liana, which is actually kind of painful because all of them actually have the heal buff from the prayer, so it's actually going to hurt them right now. So yeah, they just take a little extra damage. Didn't really matter. Went ahead and started pelting away. Did lose a buff there. Consecration, I wasn't worried about that. I was not going to win with AoEs, so she moves back with Crystal Ward. Luckily, my opponent was either lucky or kept count of the number of steps, because you can't move while in crystal form, and it lasts for 2 rounds. So the mist would get about to there before she can move again. So I'm gonna go ahead and take out Liana. Did not want to deal with any act agains or cleansing or all that nonsense. All right, Uldur's bow actually does pretty good damage. I was actually a bit shocked of how much damage. I mean, it's not a lot of damage, to be honest. Like, honestly, you want to do a lot more than this when you're DPS. But in the case where I'm only got an area heal from young Jessica as my healing, this was actually a little dangerous. Alright, and I'll go ahead and move in. They have max stacks, so I wasn't going to be applying any debuffs, but I did this just so I can get the stacks of her talent, so her stats increase. Also, her katana can remove buffs, I believe. So that's another reason why they go ahead and do the AoE. Yeah, so yeah, it removes some buffs, nothing too serious though. I mean, by the time I get these abilities back up, they're gonna have full stacks of this crystal barrier. But like I said, I was just doing the I was just getting the stacks of this, which does plus 10% per stack, up to 4 stacks, so makes her pretty beefy. And their Luna, by the way, is immune to fixed damage, which is super annoying. Yeah, I think she has a badge equipped. So yeah, pass turn to get the extra action, the cycle my cooldown so I can do mass heal again. Yeah, so this is just going to be a regular attack here. She does have her 3-cost buff up, so her defense is being applied to her attack and all that nonsense, but it's just a regular attack, and Trent guards don't actually do very good damage. So I went ahead and fell back here because my guard buff on Freya was wearing off. So I needed to get in position so I can actually guard everybody. So I'm still in threat range, so I don't proc hide and seek, but I didn't really need hide and seek to do what I need to do. So just went ahead and just did in point blank range here. I was a little concerned about whether or not I can assassinate Luna when she has those sharpshooters. So I actually used this opportunity to remove my transformation because it gives you an extra action. So that lets me cycle my my area heal cooldown again and cast it again. Honestly, if they still had a DPS like Elwen, I would not be able to keep up with the heals here. Not to mention the fact that Elwen can negate heals. So I killed the summon just so I can get another stack. Deathbread doesn't do anything, unfortunately. So full hit points. Still enough damage. Did I proc it? Let me check that real quick. Yeah, so it proc Whirlwind, so she's taking 50% less damage. Didn't matter, still was enough to kill. And that was also in Forest. So at this point it's 4-on-2. The crystal barrier, just the crystal transformation wore off. They can move up now. I have the center at this point. They go ahead and fall back. I just passed turn. I'm okay with that. Yeah, Rosen's Seal is actually equipped with a hat that makes it so that they are immune to heal reversal and things that prevent you from acting again. It's a very unique helmet. It's seen as not as good simply because the amount of effects that do those particular effects are not very common, especially in PvE. So yeah, I went and fell back. I was just like, I have time. I'll just go ahead and just get myself set up so I can get the assassination. Yeah, at this point I just move in. And I think my opponent gives up at this point. Nope, they don't. They keep going. So I went ahead and just assassinated her. I didn't really need to because she was going to die anyway. But yeah, at this point my opponent couldn't do anything. So yeah, pretty neat. Obviously my Sakura didn't really do much. She was kind of just there. I think Sheltier probably may have been a better call. At least then I would have been able to at least try to fight Amelia, and I think they would have traded just fine because I could get the damage reduction shield up and all that good stuff. Anyway, I think I'm going to go ahead and call it here. I'm the Depressed Viewer. This was Langrisser Mobile Apex Season 6. See you guys later.